Chelsea are no longer a football club. They are literally just a business. And look, I'm a Man United fan. I couldn't care less about Chelsea, but it's just really interesting as to what's been going on there. And, especially since Bluco have come over. Now, I want to take it back. Obviously, Chelsea were the first club in the UK to get this financial doping through Roman Abramovich, right? He came in 2003, Russian oligarch, and was like, you know what? I want to put bare peas into Chelsea and make them, one of the biggest clubs in the world. And do you know what? He's done it in a way that, firstly, it was legal at the time, but he was just whacking in money. And look, I was jealous as a Man United fan, but at the same time, I'm like, you know what? He actually seems like he loves the club and he's doing it for the right sort of reasons, right? And you know what? At the start, it was kind of cool to see someone come in. And then when they actually got good, I was like, okay, yeah, you're doing too much now. Chill out. Obviously, they got in Jose Mourinho, won a couple of titles, which was annoying because they should have been our titles if it wasn't for financial doping, but it is what it is. And then we saw them eventually get to a Champions League final, which we beat them in. Then they got to another Champions League final and won that one. And they've since won another Champions League final. They've won 2 Champions Leagues in the last 20 years, which is insane for a club before that had never any European Cup pedigree really. And yeah, man, like, look, they went 50 years from winning a title until Jose won them one. Now, it's been exposed, obviously, Roman had to sell the club after everything going on with Russia and Ukraine. And there's been a lot that has been brought to the forefront in terms of, legal payments here and there to Eden Hazard most recently and things like that. So look, there was a lot of backhanded things going on and whatnot. But look, I think it provided competition in the Premier League, which I think is good overall. But I just think it was done in the wrong way, evidently. Now, Bluco came in and took Chelsea off Roman Abramovich's hands. Todd Boehly and Clear Lake, did a consortium takeover. And since then, it's just become weird. They've treated this as like a money-making exercise. And something that I think Alan Sugar said ages ago when he owned Tottenham is that he learned that you actually can't really make money from football clubs, ultimately. You probably can if you're part of a massive club which is listed and the share price goes up massively, such as the Glazers unfortunately have done. If you've not watched that, actually, I've got a video called The Truth Behind the Glazers Takeover. Go watch that. It's actually linked to this channel, so yeah, go watch it. But yeah, man, like, I wanted to discuss this because since they've come in, they've signed close to 50 players, I think it is. They spent like 1.6, 1.7 billion pounds. A net spend of about 750 to 800 million. So they've sold a lot as well. But they've treated this like a game. They've treated it like Footy Manager. They're trying to hoard all the young players and they don't really care about older players going. And the reason is because young players still hold their value. That's why they've exploited massive loopholes. The first one when they came in was these massive contracts. They'd buy a player. They bought Mudryk for, I think it's 80, 90 million pounds, put him on like a 7-8 year contract or whatever it was. And the reason they did that is because you can, through PSR rules, you can only spend a certain amount of money each year, depending on how much you've made in the last 3 years. Okay. So in order to get around this, the way that you can account for it in your P&L, which is where your profits, it's profit and sustainability rules. So it comes from your profits, not what's on your balance sheet. I'm telling you this, sorry for the finance jargon. I'm an accountant and an investment banker by trade. So that's why I went into that. But one thing is what they did if you put it over a longer contract, you can spread the cost over that long contract. So for instance, if you have spent 80 million on a player and then you put them on an 8-year contract, you can effectively say you're literally only attributing 10 million costs per year for that particular player. Now, what's mental to me is that they basically have done what I generally do on Footy Manager, where as soon as you see someone like, a wonder kid, or you see someone highly rated as a kid, you're just like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just going to spend bare peas on this person so no one else can get them. That's what they've done with loads of their players. The only issue is that Football Manager is a game. This is real life. And a lot of the times these wonder kids don't actually turn out to be wonder kids. If you look at the amount of players they've signed, which is an insane amount, they've actually sold about 20 of those players already, which is mental because they've only been in charge for coming up to 3-4 years now. And obviously they've had a couple of hits, not sustainable hits really. I think the players that are actually performed the best for them have been two of the biggest signings, which were Enzo Fernandez and Moises Caicedo. Then after that, it's just been people they've come through their academy. And that's another thing that they've tried to do is, and this wasn't just through Blueco, this was happening before that. This was happening under the Abramovich era. Chelsea have got an amazing academy. And the way that they were doing it, they were poaching youngsters before they turned a certain age so that they could then grow into their academy and then be sold for profit, pure profit, towards their PSR rules. And you've seen this in the past. Like you've seen Mark Guehi now. Look at Mark Guehi. He was a Chelsea player. He was in the Chelsea academy. You've had loads of people who've done that. You had Conor Gallagher more recently. You've had Mason Mount. You've had all these players, Lewis Hall at Chelsea. So a lot of these players have been sold as part of the academy to generate pure profit so that they can then spend in other areas. Then on top of that, you've got the whole loophole in terms of selling assets to yourself via another vehicle. So essentially, Chelsea owned the hotel or hotels near Stamford Bridge, I think it was. And in order to generate more profit for the year, they're like, we're going to sell this hotel, but who they're going to sell it to? They sold it to, so Clear Lake had their own different companies. They sold it to their own company. So in the books, it looks like it's a profit, so they can now spend more money. They've done this with their women's team as well, and I think a training ground and the women's stadium as well. They did this with a lot of assets, but I think other teams started to do it. So you had Aston Villa do it, and then one other team, I think, and then the Premier League were like, nah, this ain't running, man. You're just trying to exploit the loophole. So they've closed that now. One thing I will say is that Chelsea have got really lucky with the fact that they've always had that first mover advantage. When Roman Abramovich came in, there was no one really doing what he did. So nothing put in place to stop him from doing what he did. So it wasn't illegal at that time. But then obviously, since City have come in and financially doped up as well, now there's rules in place that have meant that even though the Saudis who own Newcastle are the richest technically club in the world, they can't spend their money because of these rules. But they did it before, so it doesn't matter. Again, with this whole selling assets, they did it before the restriction closed. And the thing is, now they've benefited from everything. They benefited from these Eden Hazard transfer fees and stuff. Like the only reason is why they've got away with not a massive hit in terms of these sort of illegal transfer payments is to do with them apparently being transparent with being like, hey, actually, yeah, we did mess up. Here's basically where we messed up. You made a fuck up, man. You should be dealt the consequences of that. But maybe they are being dealt the consequences because in the last 5 games, they've lost 5 games in the Premier League and scored 0 goals. This is the worst run they've been on since 1912. And honestly, it's embarrassing because the amount of money they've actually spent in this time. Essentially, they're hiring managers to be yes men. They're not hiring the best in class. They hired Maresca, I believe, to be a yes man. And then I think he then grew in stature. He won the Club World Cup. He got them a European trophy, albeit in the Conference League. And I think Chelsea ultimately wants someone who is not too good because then he has to be a yes man. When Enzo won the Club World Cup, I think that was the end of him because now what happens is the fans now start thinking, oh, we've actually got a good manager. So now we're going to side with the manager if anything goes wrong over the ownership. Chelsea don't want that. That's why low-key they're happy with Rosinia. Like Rosinia is a crap manager, but he's a yes man. And he's grateful to have this job because there's no way in hell he would ever have this job under Roman Abramovich. No way in hell. So that guy's just happy to be there. Happy to sign a long-term contract. He doesn't matter. And I know they've lost 5 in a row. From a footballing perspective, he should get sacked in the summer. But I'm not sure Chelsea want to do that. Because like I've said, I think they want to be seen, the ownership want to be seen as not the manager having the power. They want the power. They want the fans on side, well, more on side to them rather than the manager. So I think this is really weird to me. And you've now seen even, I think players initially were brought into this project of, oh, this club's spending loads of money, we're going to get loads of cool players in or whatever. But when you realise that you need a blend of experience and youth, not just youth, you start realising that it's just not a good place to be. It seems like the fact that Garnacho, so I actually loved Garnacho at United. I know he had some issues and look, I get why we sold him and whatnot. But I think he thought, oh, it's not going to get worse than United, like in terms of, toxicity and things like that. But now he's walked into Chelsea and he's like, oh shit, this is worse than United. What the fuck? Like, yeah, I think players are now realising this is a shit show. And I feel as though there's going to be a lot of players wanting to be out this summer. You've already seen Enzo talk about it. I think Cucurella might have said something as well. you're getting players piping up, man. I think Cole Palmer can see him bouncing. Players aren't just happy there. The manager's crap. I don't know. My guy thinks he's some sort of like philosopher. Man, shut the hell up, bro. But honestly, they could be the next Leicester. And the reason why I say Leicester is because their relegation got confirmed to League One, which is insane. They're in the third tier of English football now. And 10 years ago, they won the Premier League. They won an FA Cup literally like 4 or 5 years ago. This team have literally built a new training ground, an amazing training ground a few years ago as well. Look, they've had a lot of tragedy with their owners and things like that, but it's a shame to see a club like Leicester, who everyone was backing when they won the league and everything. It was the best story I've ever seen in the Premier League in my lifetime. And now they're in the third tier of English football, and it's so hard to get out of those tiers. And I don't know where they go from here, man. But look, Chelsea could follow that same demise. I know you might be thinking, oh, don't be ridiculous. It's too early to say that. You don't know. These owners might be like, you know what? We're not actually going to make any money from this now because players are going to stop wanting to come to us. They're going to want to keep leaving. We're not going to get the added money from Europe if we don't qualify for Europe. The owners might just quit. And then what happens? That was my view anyway. If you're here for more content, please remember to lock in, like, share, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. We are bringing daily videos every single day. That's what daily means. I wanted to do a snooker video today, but because this came up, I had to discuss it. They lost last night to Brighton, and I was like, I need to discuss this. But yeah, make sure you're subscribing. Let me know what you want to see. There is a World Cup series that I am currently working on as well. So yeah, keep it locked. Anyway, till tomorrow. Peace.